everyone, this is the last video of the Exam 2 Study Guide video series. This is part 8 and the last video for this series. So we are going to be discussing criteria for picking books for beginner readers. So each teacher has different criteria for their students when they are picking books for them. And in this case, to answer this question, I'm going to be discussing what I would do if I was in the classroom and trying to pick books for beginner readers. So first things first, this isn't in order of how I would do this, but first things first, I would first check the grade level that they're in. So for example, if they're in kindergarten, try to find kindergarten related books. If they're in third grade, find third grade related books, and so on and so forth. So first things first, what is the student's grade level? Where should they be? Where are they? And what grade are they in? The next thing that I want to do is check the reading level. So actually, this is actually what you would do first and then second. So first, figure out what your student's reading level is at. If you don't know what their reading level is at, then trying to pick a book for them is not going to be helpful. So first things first, figure out what their reading level is. If you have a third grader who's reading at a fourth grade level, then you might need to bump up in advance what books that they're going to be reading. If you have or it could be vice versa. If you have a third grader who's reading at a first grade level, then you need to find books that are at the first grade level, which then brings me to grade level. So I would then try to find books that are at the proper grade level, because one, they'll be able to read it and comprehend it better than, say, giving them a book that is third grade. Even though they're in third grade, they might not be able to read and process the information as, say, maybe what they're supposed to be reading, which is at a first grade level. So that's what I meant by grade level. So sorry if I confused anybody at the beginning of this video. First, figure out what the reading level is, and then figure out what the grade level of the book is supposed to be. Then I would check in their interest. What interests catches the student's eye? Are they into fantasy, like princesses, dragons, stuff like that? Are they into mystery? Do they want to solve a problem? Maybe like a Nancy Drew book. Horror, maybe use like Goosebumps if they are interested in horror. Go with the Goosebump type books. So figure out what their interests are. Are they interested in princesses and princesses? Do they like scary things? Are they interested on realistic stuff like history, or are they mostly interested in like dogs, cats? Figure out what they like, what they don't like. And that way, the book that you pick for them isn't going to be one where they're going to be dreading going, great, now I have to read this boring book because my teacher said so. Instead, it's going to be interesting going, oh my gosh, I really love reading this book. For example, in my 6th grade class, my teacher, she knew I really liked kids, and I really loved hanging out with my brother. So she, and I was like really obsessed with babysitting at the time, so she picked a book for me called, I think like Baby Island or something like that, or Babysitter's Island, where it's about these two girls who are babysitting these kids while they were on a cruise ship, and they got shipwrecked and were forced to try to survive on this island in hopes of being rescued one day. While these two older girls were in charge of like 5 babies, and each baby kind of had their own little quirk to them. So that's just something that interested me at the time when I was in 6th grade. Obviously, interview your kids, talk to them, see what they like and what they don't like. Genre. there's a ton of different types of genres for books. So this would be the fourth thing. And I would let your students actually pick the genre of the book that interests them. So this could actually coincide with interests as well. What they're interested in, and then let them pick the genre of the book that they might find interesting. So let them pick the book on their own. Obviously, the grade level and the reading level, that's the teacher. So I would actually put right here if I wanted to. So teacher does. So this is where the teacher gets involved. And right here, this is where the student gets involved. So student. So sorry. So I'm just going to put student. But students will, in my opinion, should be able to pick their own book that interests them and is at the proper grade level for them. Don't let students pick a 4th grade level book when they're reading at a kindergarten level, because then they'll never be able to read the book. And then last but not least, make sure the book is school appropriate. Obviously, I don't think that's a problem. I know for me, I would make sure that the books I'm bringing to school are school appropriate or from the school library before I decide to give it to a student. Obviously, try to avoid students. If students want to bring a book from home, I would encourage that, but I would be wary. In fact, if they do try, I would say let me make sure it's a school appropriate book and that we can use it for in the classroom. Because there's probably some schools that are like more than happy to say, yes, your child can bring or your student can bring their own book from home, but most likely that's not the case, and you'll probably have to use the school library or your own personal school class library if you have books in your classroom. So just be mindful, make sure the books are school appropriate, and yeah, that's kind of the criteria for if you're in Miss Fernandez's class, what I'm looking for in when picking books for beginner readers. The reading level, what grade level they're reading at, their interests, the genre that they want to read, and making sure it's school appropriate. It might be different for every other teacher, but that's, for me, that's how I feel I would do it. Other than that, it is up to you as the teacher how you want to do it. There's different criteria that maybe you as a teacher would set. This is just my example of what I would do as a teacher. But yeah, when picking the book though, make sure I would highly encourage, in my opinion, your students to be involved when picking the book, because you don't want to force them to read a book and they're not interested in it whatsoever. If you can find a book that they'll like, but obviously you have to make sure it's a grade level and reading level appropriate. If you want to take it a step further, I would even suggest doing. We learned about these. These small group book clubs, I think you want to call it. I could be wrong. That's probably not what it is. But my brother did this when he was in charter school. And essentially, what happened? His teacher assigned her students into small groups. Each student had a specific job of what they were supposed to do. One was like the predictor, so he made predictions about what was going to happen in the story. Another was looking for the vocabulary words. Another was an artist, so they would draw out what happened in the story. Another student would look would be like the summarizer or the explainer. I know there's special names for them. I personally forgot. But it's actually really interesting, because then after what my teacher did was not my teacher, but my brother's teacher, what she allowed them to do was to pick a book that caught their interest. So my brother's group got all these different books first, they were all grade level appropriate, and they were at the reading level that he was at. I think he was a second or third grade reading level at the time. So the teacher found like 3 to 4 different books that the students might be interested in. The book that he chose was Holes, and he actually really enjoyed reading it. And then after, I think a part of it was because I told him there was a movie about it, and now it's his favorite movie, so he always watches it when he can. But he really enjoyed reading it, and he was able to comprehend everything from the story. So, the fact that he got to pick the book was, I think, what made it even more interesting and more excitable for him, because he and his friends got to pick the book that they wanted to read. So that's another way that you can do it, but again, the criteria is really up to you as the teacher. Other than that, this is Amanda Fernandez signing off of the last video of the Exam 2 series. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and don't be afraid to comment and subscribe if you are watching this video, and I would appreciate you guys checking out my other videos to hopefully better help you with understanding different teaching strategies and answering maybe some frequently asked questions of how you would do certain things in a classroom. Other than that, I am signing off. This is Amanda Fernandez saying goodbye to you. Goodbye.